In my previous life, my flatmate from the countryside fell in love with a sculptor. She started imitating his tattoos and smoking habits, spending all her living allowance to support his career. The sculptor invited my flatmate to meet at a hotel, claiming it had a better atmosphere. When I discovered and tried to stop her, she flew into a rage. "You're just jealous of me, you can't stand to see me happy." Later, the sculptor participated in an art exhibition, and his work went viral on Twitter, gaining countless followers. My flatmate began to hate me because of this, using every means to try and ruin my life. Rumors, hired thugs, framing me. In the end, she literally drowned me in the mud of the countryside. All for the sake of pursuing her so-called freedom and love. After being reborn, I returned to the day my flatmate was going to meet the sculptor at the hotel. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Muddy water flooded my nostrils, the pain of suffocation filling every pore of my body. My arms flailed in the air, desperately struggling and screaming. But Jasmine stood on the shore, coldly watching me. Her eyes showed no ripple of emotion, her brow furrowed with mockery and disgust. "Katrina Brown, if it weren't for you stopping me from meeting David at the hotel, I would have achieved success in both my career and love life by now. I wouldn't be in this situation. If there's a next life, remember not to meddle in other people's affairs." Jasmine's face slowly blurred as my consciousness began to fade, drawn away by an invisible death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Jasmine was going to meet David at the hotel. "Kat, which outfit do you think I should wear to meet David?" Jasmine asked excitedly, waving two dresses in front of me. One white and conservative, the other a sexy red number. I smiled and pointed to the red dress. "This one. It complements your skin tone. Our Jasmine is so beautiful, you'll definitely captivate that sculptor tonight," I said affectionately, pulling her to sit at my dressing table and picking up a brush to do her makeup. Jasmine already had a mature look, but she didn't usually dress up. In no time, with my makeup skills and the deep V-neck red dress, her reflection in the mirror looked increasingly alluring. And David Paxton liked women like that. I hid the hatred in my eyes and clenched my fist where she couldn't see. "Oh, Jasmine, this time I won't stop you. I hope you won't regret it." Jasmine was my university roommate from a rural area and my good friend. Her thick fringe covered her eyes, and black-rimmed glasses hid her flushed cheeks. She was shy and insecure, afraid to speak to others. Our other two roommates disliked her, openly and secretly mocking her for being provincial and putting her down. I was the only one who felt sorry for her, standing by her side to encourage and support her. But at some point, Jasmine started smoking, got tattoo sleeves, and stopped attending classes. The once introverted girl learned to fight back. She sent the boy who bullied her to the police station and reported the roommates who mistreated her to our tutor. The insecure girl gradually became more outgoing, and I was happy for her transformation. At that time, she wore lip and nose piercings, and with sparkling eyes. She said to me, "Kat, I've just realized for the first time that people can live so freely. This is what true freedom feels like." But later, her behavior became increasingly erratic. I was a bit worried about her state of mind, so I kindly asked if something had happened. She told me she had recently met a sculptor online. Artists have their own unique perspectives. He was free-spirited, romantic, and bold. Moreover, this sculptor had invited her to meet at a hotel the next evening, saying the environment was nice and suitable for conversation. Jasmine even linked arms with me, asking which outfit she should wear. It was an obvious trap, and I couldn't stand by and watch Jasmine fall into it. So I told our tutor about the situation, called her parents, and did everything I could to prevent her from going to the meeting. She was furious, her face contorted with rage. "Katrina, you're just jealous of me. You can't stand to see me happy." Not long after, the sculptor became famous due to an art exhibition, gaining numerous followers on Twitter. Jasmine, however, held a grudge against me for this, spreading rumors about me and trying to frame me. In the end, she even used the pretext of inviting me to her home for a holiday to drown me in a bog. The vibration of my phone pulled me out of my reverie. "Kat, David and I are together now. Look, isn't he more handsome than those rich guys you've met?" The The message was followed by an intimate photo of the two in bed, every word brimming with joy. I felt a bit uneasy. I typed and deleted several words in the chat box. Before I could send my message, Jasmine sent another one. Kat, could you lend me some money? I've spent all my living allowance for this year, but David is raising funds for his art exhibition, and I want to help him. In my previous life, Jasmine was the same way. Even with only £1,500 monthly allowance, she would give £1,400 to David. She called it investing in dreams. What did it matter if she couldn't eat well or dress warmly, as long as she was spiritually fulfilled? How absurd. I refused her without hesitation. Although I wasn't short of money, I found it distasteful to give it to someone like her. Katrina, could you not be so superior? It's just borrowing some money. Your money stinks of copper anyway. If you don't want to lend it, fine. After that day, Jasmine blocked me, and my classmates looked at me with malice and mockery. Even when I went to ask the class president a question, he spoke sarcastically. How could a country boy like me be worthy of talking to you? You'd better ask someone else. I smiled and turned to ask our tutor instead. Spreading rumors about me and isolating me in front of classmates was Jasmine's usual tactic. But I really couldn't be bothered with these petty tricks. In my previous life, worried that Jasmine might do something rash, I skipped many classes to counsel her, even neglecting my own graduation project. Now that I've been given a second chance at life, I want to live for myself. I studied each subject diligently, solidified my professional skills, and using my foresight, bought some stocks and sent out many internship applications. I never bothered with her again. After that day, Jasmine Lancaster never returned to our dormitory. Until one day, I received a call from her mother. Katrina, has something happened to Jasmine recently? Why doesn't she answer her phone? In this life, I could turn a blind eye to Jasmine, but I couldn't harden my heart against her family. After my mom passed away, my dad remarried. He only ever gave me money, never caring about me. Although Jasmine was just my university roommate, her family was kind and down to earth. Every holiday, they would send me lots of homemade treats from their village and warmly invite me to visit. Mr. and Mrs. Lancaster treated me like their own daughter. Worried I might not be comfortable with the village accommodations, they booked me the most expensive hotel nearby. Whenever I visited, they would prepare a hearty chicken soup for me and fill my plate to the brim. Every change of season, Mrs. Lancaster would send Jasmine hand-knitted sweaters, always including one for me. Though the stitches were rough, it was a love I had never experienced in this life. I opened my mouth but couldn't speak, still unable to tell them what Jasmine had done. Mrs. Lancaster, she might not have seen her phone. Is something the matter? Her father's been in a car accident. He's in the ICU, constantly calling for Jasmine. But after asking for money last time, she stopped answering our calls. I just can't reach her. Don't worry, Mrs. Lancaster. Jasmine hasn't been with me lately, but I'll try to contact her. After hanging up, I tried messaging Jasmine, unsurprisingly met with a red exclamation mark. Following the information Jasmine had given me, I found David Paxton's social media account. David was someone who loved sharing his life, his account filled with various photos of his daily activities. I scrolled down the screen, my brow never relaxing. He had tied himself and Jasmine together with rope, parading naked down the street, shouting about freedom and art. They were on the streets with scissors, cutting the hair of unsuspecting women and children, laughing at the shocked and angry looks of passers-by. They crashed someone's wedding, pouring slop over the bride and groom's heads, photographing their handiwork and fleeing amidst the guests' curses. They were chased and beaten like vermin, ending up at the police station. Jasmine's face had a large gash, yet she still flashed a peace sign at the camera, considering it her badge of honor. Even after leaving the police station, they high-fived each other, claiming they'd achieved a new milestone and would return. David incorporated these experiences into his artwork, with Jasmine by his side. She said David was her savior, that she had never felt so free and unrestrained. She said this was what living for oneself truly meant. This Jasmine seemed like a stranger to me. Following David's location on Twitter, I finally found them in a secluded corner of the park. They were sleeping on a bench near a street lamp, using straw as a blanket and newspapers as pillows. Jasmine was wearing a tank top and hot pants, her confident and brazen face hidden beneath her meticulous makeup. Seeing me approach, she flashed a smug smile and raised an eyebrow. "Well, if it isn't Miss Katrina. What's the matter? Couldn't hack it at school anymore, so you've come to join us?" I suppressed my irritation. "Jasmine, your father's been in a car accident and is in the ICU. Your mom says she can't reach you and wants you to come home." Jasmine laughed as if she'd heard a great joke. "What's that old codger got to do with me? Let him be in hospital. If he doesn't make it, at least we'll get some compensation. If it weren't for their lack of money, would I have had such a miserable life?" The Lancasters weren't particularly well off, but even with a younger brother, her parents had never neglected her. Worried she might feel inferior, they'd transfer her any spare cash they had. She used to be just insecure, but now she blamed her parents for everything. I stood there, shocked and feeling helpless. Just as I was about to say something, David interrupted. "So you're Jasmine's former roommate? I heard you two used to be close. How about lending us some money?" He looked me up and down, his gaze finally settling on my chest. A blatant provocation. I've delivered the message. "What you do is your business," I said coldly, turning to leave. David grabbed me, persisting, "Come on, love, don't you understand what dreams are? You're not just lending me money, you're funding dreams big and small all over the world." "Dreams? You call those actions that violate morals and laws, that please yourself by embarrassing others, dreams? Or are you talking about those sculptures you can't sell?" I gave him a contemptuous look and spat on the ground. David's face darkened, his fists clenched as if he was about to hit me. Before he could act, Jasmine stepped forward and pushed me, looking down at me. "Katrina, who do you think you are? David's not like you, Miss Moneybags. He's an artist. He values freedom and romance. When he becomes a great artist one day, don't come begging us for favors." The light in my eyes dimmed. In my previous life, David did indeed become a world-renowned artist worth millions. But who can predict the future? I didn't care. Suddenly, David whispered something in Jasmine's ear. Jasmine's face lit up with excitement, and she said nonchalantly, "All right, don't worry about my family. I'll go see them." That evening, as I was puzzled by Jasmine's sudden change in attitude, I saw Mrs. Lancaster sharing a GoFundMe link on Facebook. The link showed an elderly man with countless tubes attached to his body. His face gaunt, with the appearance of someone on the brink of death. My heart sank. It was Jasmine's father. Rural elderly folks wouldn't know how to set up a GoFundMe campaign. It must have been Jasmine's idea. It seemed she still retained a shred of reason. My worried heart eased a bit. I shared the link and donated £10,000, then quietly transferred another £10,000 to Mrs. Lancaster. Mrs. Lancaster called to thank me, saying Jasmine would be coming back to see them that evening. However, the day before the surgery, when I visited Mr. Lancaster in the hospital, his wife said she couldn't reach Jasmine. They hadn't received the money for the surgery either. The elderly man lay in bed, with the little boy holding his hand, repeatedly calling out "Dad," while the woman silently wept beside them. When I saw David's social media update, I suddenly recalled the whispered conversation between David and Jasmine that night, and it all became clear. Jasmine had taken the life-saving money for her father's surgery and used it to fund David's so-called dream. In the photos, Jasmine and David were beaming, and they had even posted pictures of 2 first-class plane tickets. I showed the phone to Mrs. Lancaster. She stared at the photos blankly before tentatively asking me, Is this Jasmine?" I met the old woman's eyes, my heart aching, and nodded with difficulty. She gaped, looking from her husband on the hospital bed to her daughter in the photo, and choked out, "Jasmine, she's become so pretty." I suddenly felt a lump in my throat. There was no blame, no anger, just a hint of disappointment and apology towards her daughter. Apologizing for being a burden, for not being able to give her a better life. Before leaving, I took a long look at the family, rubbing my brow. I silently transferred all the money I could spare to Mrs. Lancaster, enough for this surgery. Jasmine was the one at fault, not her family. The money in Mrs. Lancaster's hands was far from enough for long-term treatment. It wasn't long before Mr. Lancaster passed away. The next time I saw Jasmine was at Mr. Lancaster's funeral. A vibrant person had been reduced to a black and white photo hanging in the living room, while Mrs. Lancaster knelt on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. As soon as she saw me, Jasmine pointed at me and started hurling abuse. "Katrina! How dare you show up here? If you had helped me, my dad wouldn't have died. Aren't you supposed to be a rich lady? How could you watch my dad die right before your eyes?" I stood at the doorway, at a loss for words. In a sense, Jasmine was right. In my previous life, Jasmine hadn't met David Paxton, hadn't taken away the life-saving money, and Mr. Lancaster hadn't gotten into trouble. Jasmine's hysterical questioning and forceful accusations instantly put me in the spotlight. The surrounding guests were all pointing and whispering about me, as if they had witnessed me committing murder with their own eyes. Whether in my past life or this one, her methods of revenge were identical. I looked at her exquisite makeup and a mocking smile crept onto my lips as my gaze suddenly turned sharp. "Jasmine, don't twist the facts. Did I steal your dad's life-saving money? Or did I pull out your dad's tubes? This is your dad, not mine. When your uncle was in trouble, I gave nearly £100,000. Where were you then? You took the money for your dad's surgery and used it for first-class flights. To travel the world, to pursue your so-called freedom, to invest in someone else's pipe dreams." Jasmine's cheeks instantly flushed red, her hands nervously intertwined, her fingertips turning white. Ignoring the pointing from the guests, I handed the things to Mrs. Lancaster and turned to leave. I couldn't understand why Jasmine was so obsessed with pursuing her so-called freedom, even knowing it would cost her father's life. Why did she think I should bankrupt myself to save her father? After returning to university, I received offers from various companies in the industry. Thanks to my solid professional skills, relying on my memories from my previous life, I chose the Gilbert Group against my professor's advice. It was a small company just starting to make a name for itself, with no reputation or resources. However, in my past life, Calvin Gilbert, the CEO of Gilbert Group, became a highly sought-after talent by major teams due to his keen intuition. Now, the company was still in its development stage, making it the perfect opportunity for me to join. Calculating the timing, David Paxton should be preparing for his art exhibition now. In this life, Jasmine Lancaster would probably be there to witness his rise to fame. Since David's success was inevitable, I might as well seize this opportunity. I immediately began drafting a proposal to request permission from my superiors to organize an event at the art exhibition. Calvin agreed readily, saying he would accompany me to the event. As part of a startup team, Calvin and I spent countless hours at the office, pushing ourselves to work as efficiently as possible. He came from a rural background, but after years of experience, he was beginning to show the qualities of a leader. I no longer had any spare time, nor did I have the opportunity to keep up with Jasmine. My days were filled with work and learning. On the day of David's art exhibition, I was wearing the suit Calvin had chosen for me, following him as he deftly navigated through a group of old foxes. Jasmine was also present, her face painted with a black flower, each petal dripping with venom. Upon seeing the press pass around my neck, a faint sneer appeared on her lips as she deliberately drawled, "Well, if it isn't Katrina Brown? How far you've fallen, to be here reporting. Even though you refused to support our dreams back then, we were classmates for so many years. If you beg me, I might deign to arrange an exclusive interview with David for you." Her tone was full of condescension, her haughty attitude most unpleasant. I coldly refused. Those who live by the sword, die by the sword. David Paxton was nothing more than a third-rate sculptor. Without media willing to promote him, his success was far from certain. But Jasmine clearly didn't understand this principle and continued to berate me with her hands on her hips. Amidst the argument, David appeared before everyone in a white suit, the picture of elegance. He bowed to the audience, then lifted the white cloth covering his work, saying each word deliberately. "This is my piece, Jasmine." The sculpture was of a naked woman, kneeling on a platform, hands on the ground, back arched, and buttocks slightly raised. Her lips were tightly closed, her gaze unfocused. It was suggestive and intimate, leaving much to the imagination. While everyone was captivated by David's work, he gave Jasmine a meaningful look. It was filled with an inexplicable excitement and intense possessiveness. The face of the sculpture bore an uncanny resemblance to Jasmine. I instinctively looked towards Jasmine, only to find her trembling, her face pale. Jasmine. My mind suddenly went blank, and I abruptly looked up at David. He gazed at the sculpture with tender affection, explaining, "Jasmine, this is true freedom. Unbound by societal norms, undefined by labels, being one's own master." Jasmine stood awkwardly in place, her face growing increasingly distressed. As if she had been stripped naked for public viewing. But the surrounding audience applauded, for David's words, for Jasmine, for freedom. Someone even shouted in the gallery, "This is true freedom, this is the dream." That day, Calvin and I used the exclusive video from the art exhibition to put Gilbert Group on the right track. After the video was released, Jasmine went viral on Twitter, and David became an overnight sensation. Sharp-eyed netizens noticed the similarity between Jasmine and the sculpture, commenting, "Jasmine Lancaster? Jasmine? This sculpture must be modeled after her, right? Making a nude sculpture of your girlfriend in this pose, calling it freedom and art, it's truly disgusting." I have to say, David's ideas are indeed avant-garde, but poor Jasmine. In my previous life, I hadn't paid much attention to David and didn't know why he became so famous. I suppose it had something to do with Jasmine. To my surprise, despite Jasmine's obvious embarrassment at the event, she later posted a tweet. "I am Jasmine Lancaster, and I am Jasmine. It's an honor to interpret freedom and art." These few words were like a stone thrown into calm waters, causing ripples across the entire internet. You're from a respectable family, have you no shame? Being stripped naked for all to see and you're happy about it? Jasmine, are you being forced? If so, blink twice. This girl's got a great body, no wonder. That's why they call Paxton an artist, he knows how to enjoy life. How was this any different from stripping someone naked and pushing them in front of everyone? I racked my brains but couldn't understand what Jasmine was thinking. However, with the context from my previous life, I found I could accept whatever outrageous thing she did. David and Jasmine became synonymous with freedom and art, gaining countless followers overnight. Media outlets and paparazzi caught the scent and came running. Before long, David and Jasmine were rolling in money. Jasmine started wearing haute couture and driving the sports car of her dreams. But she wasn't satisfied. She called home, constantly talking about her father's life insurance. "Mom, I'm a public figure now. If I don't have money, people will look down on me. Think of it as an investment in me. I'm making money so quickly now." Her mother, Meredith, refused, saying she wanted to keep it as her own nest egg. Jasmine was furious. She recorded their phone call and posted it online, accusing her mother of being selfish and not caring about the living. Her rabid fans found out the address of Jasmine's family home, throwing red paint on the walls and smashing eggs against the windows. Jasmine was riding high on her wave of popularity and paid no attention to her elderly mother at home. It wasn't until her mother's body was fished out of a muddy pond that she finally showed up, too little too late. "Mrs. Lancaster treated me like her own daughter when she was alive. I had no reason not to pay my last respects." Jasmine had dyed her hair a reddish brown and was dressed fashionably in the latest Louis Vuitton, carrying a Chanel handbag. Her face showed no sign of grief. When I arrived, she was on the phone outside. £500,000, settle it quickly. She died by drowning, the contract states it was accidental death. Don't argue with me. Seeing me, she hastily ended the call. "Katrina, long time no see. My mom loved you when she was alive. Remember to leave a generous donation." I calmly glanced at her, feeling a chill run down my spine. Even when the person who raised her from childhood had died, all she cared about was how much she could profit from it. In just 1 year, I had attended 2 funerals for the Lancaster family, filling me with melancholy. Before I could speak, her phone rang again. The person on the other end said something, and her face lit up with joy. "What? Another £500,000? She bought it herself?" That's fantastic. I'll send you my account details right away. Transfer the £1 million today. Jasmine, aren't you afraid your mother will haunt you in your dreams? Jasmine looked at me in panic, trying to maintain her composure. She slipped and fell into the bog. What does that have to do with me? I was in the city at the time. Is it really not related to you? Jasmine left hurriedly before her mother was even buried, leaving Edna Bennett from the village to take care of the funeral arrangements out of sympathy. That night, as I kept vigil with Edna, she told me. She didn't drown. She jumped in herself. I was watching when she died. She told me not to call for help, not to make a sound. I suddenly understood, shocked but also able to comprehend. Meredith had always felt she had failed Jasmine, unable to give her a better life or education, leaving her at a disadvantage. Perhaps when Jasmine bought her the insurance policy, she saw through Jasmine's intentions. So she bought another policy for herself, squeezing out her last bit of value, sacrificing her life to fulfill Jasmine's pursuit of freedom and dreams. But Jasmine, the people who loved you have died for you. Where will you get money from next time? Will you sell yourself? At this moment, I felt such pity for the Lancaster family. I initially felt guilty about posting Jasmine online, thinking it was unfair to Jasmine Lancaster. After all, she was just a young woman. But since she had no shame, I saw no reason to cover for her anymore. Calvin and I invested heavily in Jasmine, which became a sensation in the art world. As a result, both Jasmine Lancaster and David Paxton landed numerous endorsement deals. I also received an invitation for an exclusive interview from Paxton's studio. Although I wasn't sure what David was planning, I had no reason to refuse money that was being handed to me. On the day of the interview, I didn't see Jasmine at the venue. Instead, David was surrounded by several beautiful young women. As I set up the camera, I mockingly whispered to him, "Mr. Paxton certainly knows how to enjoy himself." David, with his collar half open and legs crossed, kept stirring his coffee. He said, "Katrina, from the moment I first saw you, I knew you were someone with ideas." His gaze lingered on my chest as he said suggestively, "It's understandable that you weren't interested in me before when I had no money or influence. How about reconsidering now?" he continued. "Being with you and end up as your next masterpiece, the next Jasmine?" My eyes flashed with anger as I stood up abruptly, retorting sharply, "Mr. Paxton, not everyone is like Jasmine Lancaster, lacking common sense." Before I could finish, my white blouse was suddenly stained with a brown splash. David, holding an empty coffee cup, looked at me maliciously and said, "Oh Katrina, your shirt is dirty." I looked down to see the coffee seeping through my shirt, making it nearly see-through. Being summer, I was wearing light clothing and had nothing nearby to cover myself with. I bit my lip, crossing my arms over my chest, standing there unsure what to do. David's expression changed as he smiled at me sweetly. "Miss Brown, if you don't want to change clothes, shall we start the interview?" Changing clothes would mean selling my body, while continuing the interview in this state would jeopardize my career with Gilbert Group. It was a clever trap. A young girl just starting her career might have given in. But unfortunately for him, I wasn't that naive. I took out a small knife from my bag and swiftly cut off half of my long skirt, tying it around my chest. The black fabric perfectly covered the mess on my chest. Though unconventional, it was still decent. David's eyes suddenly turned sharp, and he angrily slammed the coffee cup on the table. My eyes flashed with a few sharp, cold gleams as I calmly turned on the camera and began the interview. After this incident, I set out to investigate David. When he spilled coffee on me today, the woman beside him didn't seem surprised at all. It was as if such things had happened many times before. After I finished editing the interview video and sent it to Calvin, he immediately noticed my uneasiness. However, he only said calmly, "I'll accompany you on future interviews." I must be the first to have my boss as a bodyguard. But since Calvin had already offered, I couldn't refuse. I could only nod sheepishly. That evening, we left work together, and he said he wanted to treat me to a late-night snack. Just as we reached the company entrance, we encountered an unexpected person. Jasmine Lancaster, carrying a suitcase, looked travel-worn, as if she had been waiting downstairs for a long time. Upon seeing me, she rushed over. "Katrina, please help me. You're the only one who can." Calvin instinctively pulled me behind him. I frowned, discreetly avoiding Jasmine's attempt to grab my hand, and looked at her expressionlessly. Ever since David became famous, he's had women around him constantly. Now he's even bringing them home. She stomped her foot, clenching her fists, growing more agitated as she spoke. "Just because I slapped that woman, David kicked me out. Those hussies dare to walk all over me. Don't they realize that without me, David wouldn't be famous at all?" Even now, Jasmine didn't understand that David never truly cared for her. With or without Jasmine, finding a replacement would have been effortless for David. I sneered, not even bothering to raise my eyelids. "How is this my problem? Jasmine, you should have seen this coming." With that, I walked past her and headed straight out, leaving Jasmine shouting in the lobby. "Katrina Brown! How can you be like this? Have you forgotten how good my mother was to you? If I can't be happy, neither can you." Jasmine's revenge came swiftly. The next day, my name and Gilbert Group were trending on Twitter. Gilbert Group's Katrina Brown seduces David Paxton during interview. Katrina Brown two-timing. Katrina Brown's blouse soaked through. The video of my interview with David from 2 days ago was also trending. The video had been maliciously edited, claiming I deliberately fell into David's arms, spilling coffee on my chest to seduce him. Yet David remained unaffected, even helping me save face. The comments were flooded with David's fans, all criticizing me. "Playing hard to get, this girl's got it down. Dressing like that to seduce someone, have you no shame? She could run a whole brothel by herself." Thank goodness our David has some self-respect. I must say, her figure's not bad. No wonder she's confident enough to try and seduce an artist. My collaboration with Calvin was also maliciously misinterpreted by some. They claimed I must have slept my way into Gilbert Group. They said I was Calvin's mistress while trying to seduce David, calling me shameless and promiscuous. In the video, Jasmine wore stark white makeup, looking pitiful. Katrina and I were uni classmates for 4 years. My parents treated her like their own daughter, always thinking of her first for anything nice. But she was jealous that David and I knew each other early on, and refused to lend him money for his exhibition pieces. Even when my dad had a car accident, she wouldn't give me a penny, self-righteously saying he deserved it. While Jasmine went on about how deep and meaningful her relationship with David was, she kept throwing unfounded dirt on me. These dirty and low-class tactics were something only Jasmine and David would stoop to again and again. Gilbert Group's stock price fell for several days in a row. But Calvin, the boss, didn't say a word. He quietly stood behind me, helping with PR. He only sent me a message late at night. "I believe in you. Don't be afraid." Tears instantly welled up in my eyes. In 2 lifetimes, this was the first time I'd felt unconditionally trusted. I watched helplessly as I was backed into a corner, utterly defenseless. Just then, David received a nomination from the International Arts Council, basking in the limelight. He stood on the stage, bathed in spotlights, preaching about his so-called freedom and art. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. As he bowed to express his gratitude, the screen behind him suddenly lit up. The play button was pressed, and a muffled voice came through the speakers. A man's hands roamed over a girl's body, his voice filled with seduction. "Don't you want to become Jasmine? To be the interpreter of freedom and art? You're just sacrificing yourself for freedom, for art, nothing more." The buttons on her blouse were undone one by one, her lips pale, trembling violently. "Take it off. Just take off your clothes, sit on me, and you can become Jasmine. Isn't it good to let the world see you in a different way?" Just before the last button was undone, the girl let out a scream, pushed the man away, and ran out. The video abruptly ended. When the screen lit up again, it showed the girl's testimony, her face filled with anger and sorrow. "I'm a sculpture student, and I was a fan of David Paxton. He uses the names of freedom and art to satisfy his own desires. Many girls fall victim at every fan meeting. What interpreter? He's clearly an abuser, and we are the victims." The last video was of Jasmine Lancaster. The last person Meredith Lancaster saw before her death was Jasmine. Edna Bennett had lied. Meredith hadn't jumped on her own, she was pushed by Jasmine. She knew how to swim, but she stopped Edna from coming forward with a look. She was willing to sacrifice her life for Jasmine's vanity. David stood on the stage, frantically trying to explain, but his microphone had been cut off. The audience couldn't hear a word he was saying. The looks in the eyes of the spectators were filled with contempt and disdain. Amidst the chaos, David was thrust into the spotlight. And the Jasmine sculptures in the cabinet were smashed by the girls. Also exposed was the video of my interview with David, where my clothes were soaked. But in light of the criminal allegations, this seemed trivial. The internet was in an uproar, and eager netizens rushed to report it to the police. They didn't even have a chance to suppress the situation. I received a call from the prison, saying Jasmine wanted to see me. While waiting for her at the visitation window, I reflected on my two lives. Jasmine was a child surrounded by love. Although her family wasn't wealthy, Mr. and Mrs. Lancaster truly cherished her, holding her in the palm of their hands. But she treated that love as a burden, as a sin, repeatedly hurting those who loved her. So now she must spend the rest of her life repaying that debt. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Jasmine spoke softly. My dad shouldn't have died. You should have stopped me from meeting David. I suddenly looked up at her. She stared at me intently, her dark pupils flickering with an unfathomable light. Through her face, I thought I saw the Jasmine from my previous life. Coming back to my senses, I found it absurd and laughable. Why don't you mention what happened next? After David became famous, you killed me. But, a long, long time later, I regretted it. I realized that what you said might have been right. She said hoarsely. It's just that you never had the chance to know. But I still want to tell you. This is too absurd. Too laughable. Yes, because I was already dead. I leaned against the glass, staring at her intently, and said word by word. Even if I knew, so what? Who cares about your regret? This time, I didn't stop you. So your parents who loved you the most died because of you, and you were locked up. Jasmine, are you satisfied with this ending? Everyone has their own quagmire, and unless she's willing, no one can pull her out of it. Even at the cost of a life. That evening, Calvin and I were working late at the office as usual. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating Calvin's profile in a warm glow. In the stillness of the night, the sound of her beating heart seemed to echo like drums and bells. Once upon a time, I had envied Jasmine terribly for having loving parents. All I had were the cold numbers in my bank account, and nothing else. But somehow, without my realizing, Calvin had become the one standing behind me. In his own way, he quietly and attentively supported me. As if sensing my gaze, he turned and tapped my head lightly. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. I took a deep breath and leaned in slightly. "I'm wondering if you'd be my boyfriend," I said. Calvin's pupils dilated slightly, then he smiled. He reached into the cabinet and took out the Gilbert Group Company seal, placing it in my hand. "A small token," he said. I was speechless with joy. My world had completely crumbled the day Jasmine pushed me into the mire. Calvin had picked up the pieces, mending me bit by bit. He had taken flight in my heart.